Hungarian Folk Tales. The Giant Beanstalk. Once upon a time, many years ago, there was a poor woman, and she had a son and a little cow. They had no food at home, and so the mother told her son, "Go, son, drive the cow to market, but be sure to get a good price for her." So the son took the cow to the market. He quickly found a buyer and exchanged the family cow for a single bean. The boy hurried home to show his mother what he had made at the market. The mother cried and cried when she learned that he had sold the cow for a single bean, but her son consoled her. "Don't be sad, mother. The old man who bought the cow said that I should plant this bean today and wait to see what happens." So the young boy planted the bean under the window in the small garden, but he was so anxious to see what would become of the bean that he couldn't even eat his supper. He awoke the following day to discover that the bean had grown overnight. He looked out of the window, but he couldn't even see the top of the giant beanstalk. He thought he'd take a better look, so he walked out of the house and stared up at the sky. However hard he looked, he still couldn't see the top of the beanstalk, so the boy said to his mother, "Well, mother, now you can see how much that bean was worth. I'm going to climb to the top to see how high it is." He climbed and climbed until the great height made him feel dizzy in the head. There was a hole in the clouds, and the young boy peeped through and saw a spectacular house. He thought, "I'm tired after climbing, so I can stay here for the night and climb back down the beanstalk in the morning." He walked into the house and saw an old woman. The woman asked the boy, "What are you doing here, my child?" "My husband is a dragon. He has 3 heads. If he sees you, he'll eat you up." The boy begged the woman to hide him because he was terribly afraid of the dragon. The woman asked him, "Are you hungry, my child?" "Oh yes, I'm very hungry indeed." The woman immediately gave the boy some supper, and he thanked her for her kindness. "Come now, hide away at once as my husband is coming home." She brought a large bowl into the room and hid it underneath the bed. The little boy was very tired, but he was far too afraid to sleep. When the clock struck 12, he heard a terrible rumbling and grumbling sound. The fierce dragon walked into the house carrying a black hen under his arm. He put it on the table and said, "Lay an egg," and the black hen laid a golden egg. Then the dragon said again, "Lay another," and the hen laid as many golden eggs as the dragon wanted. But the fearsome dragon was very hungry. "Wife, fetch my supper." And his wife brought the dragon a meal. The dragon ate all his supper up. When he'd eaten his supper, the dragon told his wife to fetch his hurdy-gurdy. "Wife, is that a stranger I can smell in the house?" "Be calm, my dear. There is no stranger here." "But there is. Bring him here or I'll tear you to pieces too." But the wife continued to calm her monstrous husband. The dragon played music until he fell asleep. He slept so peacefully that he didn't even snore. The wife thought it best to go to bed too, because it was almost dawn. When the boy saw that the dragon and his wife were fast asleep, he crept out from underneath the bowl and grabbed the black hen. He took the dragon's hurdy-gurdy, and just before he disappeared back through the hole, he took a look back and saw that the dragon was running after him. So the young boy climbed quickly back down the giant beanstalk and grabbed a sharp axe. And he chopped the giant beanstalk down. The dragon fell to the ground and broke all his bones. Nobody had to be afraid of him anymore. Then he went to his mother, who was frightened by all the fighting. "Don't be afraid, Mother. We shall both have food from now on." "How so, son?" Then the son placed the hen on the table and stroked it, saying, "Lay an egg." And the black hen laid a glorious golden egg, and it kept laying golden eggs until the mother and son were both rich. And the boy played beautiful music all day long to his mother's delight. And if you don't believe my story, you can go and see for yourself. Hungarian Folk Tales. One-eyed, two-eyed, three-eyed. Once upon a time there lived a woman who had 3 daughters. The eldest daughter had 3 eyes, the middle one had 1 eye, and the youngest had 2 eyes. One day the woman decided to marry off her daughters. A young man arrived seeking a bride, but he wanted to marry the youngest daughter with 2 eyes. But the woman wanted to marry off her eldest daughter first. The woman and the 2 elder girls became very angry with the youngest. They had a goat, and the youngest girl had to watch the goat in the fields every day. The youngest daughter was very sad because her sisters hated her and did not give her any food to eat. She was crying in the fields one day, and the goat asked her, "Why are you so sad, my dear?" "I am sad and cry because my sisters hate me so much and they give me no food to eat." "Don't be sad, I shall help you. Whenever you feel hungry, just tell me, 'Little goat, come here and lay me a table, dear.'" The youngest daughter did as the goat said, and from then on she left for the fields every morning in the best of moods. The sisters soon began to wonder why the youngest one no longer asked for food. And they decided to spy on her. On the first day, the one-eyed daughter went with her 2-eyed sister to the fields to see what she did there all day. Both daughters sat down in the grass. "Lean your head in my lap," said the 2-eyed daughter to her 1-eyed sister. And as she lay down, her sister began to ask, "Are you awake or are you asleep, my sister?" And she kept on asking this until the 1-eyed sister fell fast asleep. Then the two-eyed daughter said, "Little goat, come here, and lay me a table, dear." By the time the one-eyed daughter woke again, the goat had cleared away all the food, including the table. When she returned home, the one-eyed daughter reported that she had seen nothing at all. The next day it was decided that the three-eyed daughter should accompany her two-eyed sister to the fields. So the two girls went out to the fields with the goat. The three-eyed girl leaned her head into her sister's lap, and the two-eyed daughter began to recite. "Are you awake or are you asleep, my three-eyed sister?" Then the three-eyed daughter closed two of her eyes, but her sister did not see that her third eye stayed open, and she began to say, "Little goat, come here, and lay a table for me, dear." The three-eyed daughter pretended to be fast asleep, and when she awoke, she did not tell her sister what she had learned while sleeping. At home, she told everything to her mother and sister. The youngest daughter became very sad when the three women decided to kill her pet goat. That night, she dreamt that an old man told her to ask for the hooves and horns of the goat and plant them behind the door without letting anyone see. So that is what she did. By morning, a fine apple tree had grown on that very spot. And no one could pick an apple from its branches except the two-eyed daughter. When the young man came, he asked the one-eyed daughter and the three-eyed daughter to pick him a golden apple from the tree, but neither could do it because the branches always pulled away from their grasp. They made the two-eyed sister hide under the bed, and she was not allowed to come out whenever the young man visited the house. But one day she rolled a golden apple out from under the bed, and the young man asked, "How did this apple roll here? Who rolled it here? I demand to see who did this thing." The two sisters said, "She is a dirty little nothing, and you should not waste your eyes on her." Then the young man looked under the bed and saw the two-eyed daughter he loved so very much. He took her by the hand and led her away, saying that she must be his wife and no other. Off they went, and the two sisters stayed at home. If they had not stayed at home, my story would have lasted longer still. Hungarian Folk Tales. The Princess, 3 Pigs, and 3 Birthmarks. Once upon a time, there lived a poor man who had a wife. After a time, they had saved enough money to buy a piglet. They enjoyed rearing their piglet very much, but their happiness was not complete. They still did not have a child of their own. One day, the wife told her husband, "I think I might be pregnant." "Maybe you are mistaken." After a few days, the husband said to his wife, "I think the pig might be pregnant." "Maybe you are mistaken. It must have eaten too much and its belly is fat." The months passed and their son was born. The man was happy. He went to the pigsty to feed the pig, and what did he see there? 3 little piglets had also been born that day. Everyone in the house was happy. As the young boy grew up, he took the pigs to graze in the meadow at the end of the king's garden. The boy had a flute and he liked to play it for the pigs to dance. One day, the young princess saw the pigs dancing in the meadow below. "For how much will you sell me a dancing pig?" "For no money at all if you lift your skirt to your knee." "What use is that to you? Would you rather not have a bag of gold?" But the boy said he did not want the gold. Then the princess suddenly changed her mind and lifted up her skirt to her knee. And the boy gave her a pig. When he arrived home in the evening, his father asked the boy, "Where is the missing pig?" "The wolf has taken it. He will pay the price." The boy returned to the king's garden with his pigs the very next day, where the princess saw him and asked again, "For how much money will you sell me a second dancing pig? For the first one will not dance alone." "For no money at all if you lift your skirt up to your waist." "Would you rather not have a bag of gold?" But the boy said he did not want the gold. The princess hesitated for a second and then pulled her skirt up to her waist. And the boy gave her the second pig. When the boy arrived home that night, his father asked, "Where is the second missing pig?" "The wolf has taken him. It will pay the price." On the third day, the boy went back to the same place with his last pig, where he found the princess waiting for him. "For how much will you sell me the third dancing pig, because the first 2 will not dance without the third?" "For no money at all if you lift your skirt up to your neck." Then the boy gave her the third pig along with his flute. When the boy arrived home that night, his father asked, "Where is the third missing pig?" "The wolf took it, father. It said it would pay the price." "The wolf has no money." "It has, father. It has a lot. And now I shall go and collect the price for the pigs." When the boy arrived at the palace gates, a guard asked him, "What do you want here, little boy?" "I came to the princess to get the price for my pigs." The guard went to the princess and told her that a boy had come to be paid for the 3 pigs. The princess simply said, "Fill a bag with gold and give it to him." The boy arrived home again and poured all the gold out onto a table. The boy's mother and father had never seen so much money in their lives before. The next day, the king announced that his daughter had 3 birthmarks on her body, and any man who could tell him where they were could marry her. But any man who made a mistake would be beaten for his troubles. Hearing this, the boy said, "Father, go to the market and buy me the strongest horse, the finest saddle, a beautiful suit and a silver sword, but do not bargain and pay the proper price." and off the boy set for the royal palace. As he was riding, he met a prince and a young baron, who asked the boy, "Where are you going, young knight?" "I'm riding where I like." "What is your name?" "It is what it is." "Look, let's ride with him, he knows a lot of jokes." And from then on, they called him the Joker. As they were riding, the sun set and they found themselves on the shore of a large lake. After the boy fell asleep, the prince and the baron drove a stick into the centre of the lake and fastened the boy's horse to it. When the boy woke, he saw what they had done to his horse, but he did not say a word. But he cut the hide on the legs of the other horses and rolled it up to the knee. Then he fell asleep again. When morning came, they shouted, "Get up, Joker! You are a lazy fellow. Look, your horse swam to the middle of the lake to quench its thirst." "That's right, and yours rolled their trousers up to go and save it." All three reached the palace the next day. There were many princes, barons and gypsies gathered, but none of them knew where the princess had her birthmarks, and each received 60 strokes of the cane for his troubles. The baron thought it best to go in with the boy, as he might find out the answers. The boy said, "Venus is shining on her delicate belly." "That's right," said the king. "Why did you say that? That was exactly what I wanted to say." "The sun and the moon radiate their beams from her bosoms." "That's right," came the reply. "That was exactly what I wanted to say," said the young baron. The courtiers began to discuss the result. Their decision was that the princess and the three young men should go to the same bed, and the one she turns to will be her husband. And that's what they did. The boy had a good stock of sweets and cakes in his pockets, and he ate them noisily. "What are you eating?" the baron asked. "The heel of my boot." "Take off your boot and eat its heel." So the baron tore the heel off his boot and offered a part to the princess. "Please have some, my dear." The princess could not chew the leathery heel, and she kicked the baron out of the bed. Then she turned towards the boy, who gave her sweets and cakes. The next morning the door was opened and they saw that only the boy was in the bed, while the baron hid in shame. The baron got 60 strokes for feeding the princess with the heel of his boot, and another 60 strokes because he did not know the whereabouts of her birthmarks. And so the boy married the princess, and they had a fabulous feast, and all were invited, both rich and poor. Hungarian Folk Tales. The Fox Princess. Once upon a time there was an old king, and he had 3 sons. The king was so old that he could not leave his castle, and so he had a church built in the grounds where he could pray. On the day that the church was at last complete, a bird began to sing on top of its tower. When the king heard the bird's song, he suddenly became a young man once more, and he ordered his sons to catch the bird. The eldest son climbed to the top of the tower, but as soon as he reached out to catch the bird, it flew away. The prince watched the bird as it flew, and he saw it land in a nearby forest. "Father, I saw where the bird flew. I shall pursue it." Godspeed, my son, and return with the bird as soon as you can. The young prince arrived at the forest as the sun began to set. He made a fire and ate his supper. Then he saw a fox. Go, dog, and catch that fox. The fox stood and commanded, May you and your dog turn to stone. So that is what happened. The next morning, the middle son climbed to the tower to catch the bird. He saw the same thing that his brother had seen, and as he came down from the tower, he said, I too shall follow the bird. He reached the forest by sunset and also sat and ate his supper, and as he ate, he saw the fox. Go, dog, and catch that fox. The fox stood and commanded, May you and your dog turn to stone. On the third morning, the bird sang again, and so the youngest prince climbed the tower, but the bird flew away once more. The youngest son saw the same forest that his brothers had seen. He also followed the bird's flight and arrived at the forest as the sun was setting. He also made a fire and sat and ate his supper. Then he saw the fox. Fine fox, do not bark. Come and share my food instead. I would join you with pleasure, but I am afraid of your dog. Don't be afraid, I shall tie it to a tree. Prince, do you think the bird is in this tree? That's what I think. I saw it fly right here. But that is not so. The bird is very far away, and don't be sad because we shall catch it. The bird is in the land of the Red King, and that is 7 lands away. There is a pear tree in the garden of the king, and in that tree there is a hollow, and in that hollow lives the bird. Then the fox turned into a fine young man, and the two of them set forth. After many days and nights, they arrived at the city where the Red King lived. And as they approached the royal garden, the fox said, This is the pear tree, Prince. It won't be hard to catch the bird, but there is one difficulty. As you climb down the tree, try not to bite a pear because the tree will make such a noise that it will wake all the guards in the royal palace. As the prince climbed back down the tree, he took a breath and opened his mouth so wide that a pear popped between his teeth and he bit on it by chance. The guards ran to the garden and caught the young prince. The Red King said, I see you are a prince. I should have you executed, but I will spare your life on one condition. What would that be? There is a beautiful palace on the shores of the Red Sea. In that palace lives a beautiful princess. If you bring her here, I will pardon you. I have one life, I have one death. I shall do my best. Again you took a difficult task. I won't let you do it alone. I shall take the task myself because you were good to me, unlike your brothers. The prince and the fox journeyed on and soon reached the shores of the Red Sea. The fox tore off a gigantic leaf and shaped it into a boat with oars. Then they sat in the boat and crossed the sea. And as they reached the far side of the sea, the fox kicked the boat and it turned into a pair of golden shoes, and the fox turned into an old cobbler with a long white beard. The fox then walked to and fro in front of the beautiful palace with the golden shoes in his hands. The princess shouted down to him, Poor cobbler, bring those golden shoes to me and I shall buy them. I'm sorry, your highness, but I am very old and cannot climb stairs. Would you be so kind and come down to try them on? So the princess ran down to try on the shoes. They fit her beautiful feet perfectly. Then the old man shouted, Little shoes, take all 3 of us to where we want to be. And they found themselves back on the far side of the sea in a flash. Then he asked the princess, Tell me, do you know the Red King, as we came here to take you there? Of course I know him. I shall never marry him. I would rather die. What would you say to the prince, your majesty? I should like to marry him even though he had me kidnapped. Worry not, princess. You shall marry him and I shall marry the Red King. When they arrived back in the Red King's city, the fox did a somersault and changed into a pretty princess, much like the other. the Red King saw the princess, he was delighted. He gathered all his ministers and friends and began to prepare for a wedding feast. And as they were sitting around the table, one of the wedding guests said, "This princess is perfect, except for one fault." The other asked, "And what is that?" The gentleman replied, "Why, she has the eyes of a fox." What girl would not be ashamed when someone says she has the eyes of a fox? The bride hid under the table, did a somersault, and turned back into the fox and ran out of the room in the greatest of haste. By the time the guests came to their senses, the fox was far, far away. The three of them continued their journey home, and as they passed the forest, they saw the place where the prince had given supper to the fox. Here the fox jumped down and said, "Do you see these figures of stone? They are your brothers, and these are their horses. How did they come to be here? They set their dogs on me, and so I turned them to stone. Would you like me to turn them back again?" "Of course I would. Every man loves his brothers." "Very well, I will turn them back, but you may be sorry I did." The fox then walked over and patted the stone statues. "Rise up and live once more." Both of them stood up, and the fox said, "Well, dear prince, I shall travel no further with you." They bid farewell to each other, and the fox left. The four of them travelled home together, but they soon began to quarrel. Was it fair the youngest son should marry first? So the two princes decided to kill their youngest brother. The eldest prince cut off his head with his sword. The fox knew this would happen, and it ran to find the head a distance from the body. It ran hither and thither and saw a snake with leaves in its mouth. "Hey, snake, give those leaves to me." "I will not. It took me 7 long years to find them." The fox stamped on the snake's tail, and it dropped the leaves on the ground. The fox picked the leaves up and ran to the prince. It rubbed the leaves on the prince's neck and put his head back in its proper place. The prince opened his eyes. "Oh, what a deep sleep I had. You fell asleep for eternity, but I saved your life. I told you your brothers would kill you and rob you of your wife. Take better care in the future. Godspeed." And then the fox vanished. The boy arrived home to his father with a little bird in his shirt. He placed the bird on top of the clock. The bird began to sing a beautiful tune, and the old king sprang to his feet like a young man once more. "Who brought this bird to me?" "It was me, father," said the youngest one. "What should I do with your troublesome brothers?" "Your Majesty, dear father, give them money and horses and let them go on their way. I never want to see them here again." And the two princes were banished from the land. The youngest prince married his beautiful bride, and they both lived happily ever after. Hungarian Folk Tales. The Two Princes with Hair of Gold. Once upon a time there was a young prince who left his home looking for a bride. He was riding through a village when 3 girls watched him pass. The eldest girl said, "If that prince married me, I would make him wear a linen shirt." That was a joke, of course. The middle girl said, "I would make him sleep on a sack of straw." And the youngest girl said, "Well, if he married me, I would give him 2 sons with hair of gold." The prince's coachman overheard all of this, and he told his master, So the prince said, "Go and get the girl who said she would give me 2 boys with hair of gold." The coachman called the girl over, and the prince told her to join him in his royal carriage. Time quickly passed, and the young queen became heavy with child, but before she could give birth, the king had to go and fight. There was an old witch in the court who had teeth of iron, and she had a daughter. She would have liked the king to have married her daughter, but when he married another, she hated the young queen very much. When the king went off to war, she said to herself, "Just wait, queen, you will pay for all of this." The day came when the queen gave birth to 2 beautiful sons with hair of gold. The witch with the iron teeth stole them and put 2 puppies in their place. Then she buried the 2 boys opposite each other in the ground around the fish pond. The king was told the news that the queen had given birth to 2 puppies, and he had also lost the battle that day. This and the bad news about his wife made him very angry. He wrote a letter and sent it home. In the letter, he ordered that the queen and the 2 puppies should be thrown into the pond where a great whale lived. As soon as the messenger was sent away, he began to regret what he had ordered to be done. When the king arrived home from the battle, he married the witch's daughter. 2 trees bearing golden pears grew on the spot where the 2 princes with hair of gold were buried, and the king liked nothing better than to sit in their shade. The witch did not like this and told her daughter to tell the king to cut the pear trees down, and she nagged him until he had both trees cut down. From their wood 2 beds were made, one for the king and one for the queen. The witch ordered the splinters, twigs and branches to be burned. But no one noticed a passing goat that gobbled up 2 small twigs from the tree. When the queen and king were sleeping in their beds one night, the queen's bed asked the other, "Dear brother, is that weight not too heavy for you?" And the other bed answered, "It's not heavy at all, as my burden is my dear father. But mine's too heavy, as I have to bear my enemy." The witch was not asleep, and she overheard the beds talking. The next morning she ordered her daughter to burn the 2 beds, lest her sin come to light. The 2 beds were burned that very day. The witch with the iron teeth and her daughter were now convinced that they faced no more threats. But then the goat gave birth to 2 kids. The 2 little kids had hair of gold. The witch was shocked when she learned of this. She told her daughter to ask the king to have the 2 kids killed, and she could only recover if she ate their meat. The goat kids were killed, and the witch ordered that every strand of their golden hair should be cleared away. But as the kids' innards were washed in the stream, 2 little pieces turned into 2 goldfish. The 2 fish grew and grew until they were caught by a fisherman one day. He pulled the net to shore, and his joy turned to shock when he saw the 2 goldfish turn into 2 handsome young men with hair of gold. The 2 princes had been buried 17 years before, and so now the 2 young men were 17. They duly thanked the fisherman for catching them and asked him to take them to the king, as they knew a fine poem they wanted to recite for him. They knew they would be rewarded for their performance, and they promised to give this reward to the fisherman for his troubles. The fisherman shook all over with fear, but he agreed to take the 2 young men in the hope that he would receive a rich reward. The young men were announced to the king, and the king gave the order to let them in. The witch with the iron teeth saw what would happen and she tried her best to keep them out. But the king eventually met the two youths in spite of all her tricks, and she tried to follow them in and convince the king not to believe the two young men. But the king resisted, saying, "Don't meddle, mother-in-law. This is my business and not yours." The two young men recited a poem to the king, and in that poem they told him their mother's story and their own. They told the king that the whale had swallowed their mother alive and that she was still alive inside the whale's belly. They told the king to catch the whale and they would recover their mother. They also asked the king to richly reward the fisherman for his good deed. The witch with the iron teeth constantly tried to interrupt the youths and did all she could to make the king disbelieve them. But the king paid all his attention to the two young men. The first thing the king did was to order that the whale be caught. The queen emerged from the whale alive and the king begged her to forgive him. She had survived the ordeal intact. Then the king ordered his two sons and wife and the witch and her daughter to appear before the royal council. The king put the question to the council. What does a witch deserve who tried to kill two boys and their dear mother, ruin their reputation and deprive a father of his family? What should her punishment be? So the royal council ordered that the witch and her daughter should be tied to the tails of two horses and dragged through the city. Then they had to be chopped into four and their bodies nailed to the four corners of the city. The queen and her two sons begged for mercy for both of them, but to no avail, and the sentence was duly carried out. The king gave a rich reward to the fishermen. There was a fabulous feast, and the people of the land and the royal family lived happily ever after.